Have you ever wondered how the women who survived the Titanic truly looked in life? Not just in faded photographs, but in motion, with natural expressions and presence. In this video, advanced AI technology brings them back before your eyes, offering a rare chance to experience history from a fresh perspective. From society icons like Madeleine Astor to resilient figures like Violet Jessop and Rhoda Abbott, their stories come alive in an unprecedented way, reminding us that these women were more than names in a tragedy. Our goal is historical authenticity, paired with immersive realism. Stay tuned, subscribe, and join us as we rediscover the Titanic's unforgettable heroines through both memory and innovation. Charlotte Caroline Collyer, 1881 to 1916. Charlotte Caroline Collyer was born at the Tilth, Cobham, Surrey, on 17 June 1881. Raised in a respectable parish household, she undertook church work and domestic duties during her youth. She married Harvey Collyer, and the couple settled in Bishopstoke, Hampshire, where they raised a family, including their daughter, Marjorie. In April 1912, the Collyer family traveled second class aboard RMS Titanic from Southampton as part of a planned emigration to the United States. Charlotte boarded with 8-year-old Marjorie. When the ship struck an iceberg and began to sink, mother and daughter were placed into lifeboat 14 and survived. Harvey Collyer was among those lost. Their testimony and public appearances following the sinking attracted newspaper attention in both Britain and America, and the Collyer women briefly became public figures in relief efforts and inquiries. After returning to England, Charlotte's health, already weakened by tuberculosis, remained fragile. She remarried in 1914, but continued to suffer from illness and died of tuberculosis on 28 November 1916. Her short post-Titanic life, marked by public scrutiny and declining health, underscores the personal as well as public consequences of the 1912 tragedy. Violet Constance Jessop, 1887 to 1971. Violet Constance Jessop was born on the 2nd of October 1887 on the Pampas near Bahia Blanca, Argentina, the eldest child of Irish immigrant parents. She spent her childhood helping to care for large younger siblings and, after surviving a serious childhood illness, moved with her family to England in her mid-teens. Financial necessity led her to maritime service. She trained and worked as a stewardess, a role that combined long hours, close contact with passengers, and firm discipline. Jessop is most notable for her service on the White Star Line's Olympic-class vessels. She was aboard RMS Olympic when it collided with HMS Hawke in 1911. In April 1912, she served as a stewardess on RMS Titanic and survived the sinking, later relating her eyewitness experience of the evacuation and the atmosphere on deck as the ship foundered. During the First World War, she served as a nurse on HMHS Britannic, which sank in 1916 after striking a mine. She survived that disaster as well. After a long career at sea, Jessop retired to England. She wrote memoirs recounting her experiences and remained a figure of public interest because of her unusual record of surviving multiple major maritime incidents. She died in Great Ashfield, Suffolk, on the 5th of May, 1971. Madeleine Talmage Astor, 1893 to 1940. Madeleine Talmage Astor was born in Brooklyn, New York, on 19 June 1893. Raised in a comfortable, socially prominent family, she received the education and social training expected of young women of her class and moved in New York's upper-class circles. In September 1911, she married Colonel John Jacob Astor IV, a wealthy American industrialist and social figure. She was 18 at the time. In April 1912, the Astors were returning to the United States aboard RMS Titanic, traveling first class. Madeleine, then pregnant, survived the ship's sinking on the night of the 14th to the 15th of April 1912 after being placed into a lifeboat. Her husband did not survive. The contrast between her narrow escape and his death made her one of the most widely noted survivors and drew intense public attention to her subsequent welfare. After returning to New York, she gave birth to their son, John Jacob Astor VI, on the 14th of August, 1912. In the years that followed, she maintained a public social presence, later remarried, and divided her time between family responsibilities and social obligations. Madeleine Astor died in Palm Beach, Florida, on the 27th of March, 1940. Her experience aboard the Titanic, survival while pregnant, high social rank, and immediate widowhood remains central to her historical significance. Marian Longstreth Thayer, 1872 to 1944. Marian Longstreth Thayer was born on the 9th of November, 1872 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, into a well-established Quaker family. She married John Borland Thayer II in 1892. The couple settled near Philadelphia and raised 4 children, among them their son, John Jack Thayer III. In April 1912, the Thayers traveled first class on the maiden voyage of RMS Titanic with their young son and a maid, Margaret Fleming. When the ship struck an iceberg, Marian, Jack, and Fleming were placed into a lifeboat and survived. Her husband, John B. Thayer, remained aboard and perished. Marian later gave testimony about the evacuation and the behavior of crew and passengers during the disaster. After the sinking, Marian returned to her home, Redwood, in Haverford, Pennsylvania. She did not remarry and maintained an active domestic and social life there. Soon after the rescue, she hosted and publicly thanked Captain Arthur Rostron of Carpathia and other rescuers. Her family continued to be associated with the public memory of the disaster through Jack Thayer's later accounts. Marian Longstreth Thayer died at Redwood in Haverford on the 14th of April 1944, notably on the 32nd anniversary of the Titanic's sinking. Helen Churchill Candee, 1858 to 1949. Helen Churchill Candee was born on the 5th of October, 1858, in New York City. She grew up in an educated family and developed an early interest in writing and art. After a brief marriage that ended in divorce, she supported herself and her 2 children as a writer, gaining recognition for both fiction and nonfiction. Her 1900 book, How Women May Earn a Living, reflected her belief in women's independence, while her later works focused on travel, design, and Asian art. She became a respected lecturer and art critic in Washington, D.C. society. In April 1912, Candee boarded the RMS Titanic at Cherbourg as a first-class passenger, returning to America from Europe. During the sinking, she helped others into lifeboats before entering Lifeboat 6 herself. She reportedly injured her ankle while escaping, yet remained calm and supportive to fellow survivors. Before leaving the ship, she entrusted a small locket with a portrait of her children to a male friend, fearing she would not survive. The locket was recovered after the disaster, and returned to her. Following the tragedy, Candee continued her literary and artistic career, writing extensively on travel in Asia and Europe. She remained active in cultural and social life until her death in York Harbor, Maine, on the 23rd of August, 1949. Elsie Edith Bowerman, 1889 to 1973. Elsie Edith Bowerman was born on the 18th of December, 1889 in Tunbridge Wells, Kent. She was educated at Wycombe Abbey and later studied at Girton College, Cambridge, where she developed a strong interest in law and social reform. A committed suffragist from her early 20s, Bowerman joined the Women's Social and Political Union and worked with other activists to advance women's voting rights before 1912. In April 1912, she traveled first class on RMS Titanic with her mother. When the liner sank, she and her mother were lowered into Lifeboat 6 and were rescued by Carpathia. The lifeboat also included Margaret Molly Brown, an episode Bowerman later described in his memoirs and interviews. During the First World War, Bowerman served with Scottish Women's Hospital units and witnessed events on the continent that informed her later political work. After the war, she pursued legal training and became one of the early women to practice as a barrister, including work at the Old Bailey. Bowerman remained active in public life for much of the 20th century. She died in London on the 18th of October, 1973, remembered both as a Titanic survivor and as a pioneer in women's professional and political advancement. Elizabeth Weed Schutz, 1861 to 1949. Elizabeth Weed Schutz was born on the 10th of May, 1861, in Newburgh, New York. She grew up in a comfortable household and later worked as a governess and companion for prominent families. By 1912, she was employed by American heiress Margaret Graham and was accompanying her and her daughter, Margaret Graham Jr., on a European trip. In April 1912, Schutz boarded RMS Titanic at Cherbourg as a first-class passenger in the company of the Grahams. When the ship struck an iceberg, she recalled the confusion among passengers and the difficulty in locating lifeboats. Eventually, she, along with the Grahams, was placed into Lifeboat 3 and survived the sinking. Schutz later gave a vivid account of the disaster, describing the darkness of the night, the cries from the water, and the fear among those in the lifeboat until they were rescued by RMS Carpathia. Following the tragedy, she returned to the United States and resumed her private life, continuing in domestic service and companionship roles. Unlike some other survivors, she avoided publicity, though her written recollections provide valuable testimony about the disaster from the perspective of a governess rather than a wealthy passenger. Elizabeth Schutz died in Tarrytown, New York, on the 27th of September, 1949. Rhoda Mary Abbott, 1873 to 1946. Rhoda Mary Abbott was born on the 14th of January, 1873, in Aylesbury, Buckinghamshire, England. She later moved to the United States, where she married Stanton Abbott, a British-born boxer. Although the marriage ended in separation, Rhoda remained in America and raised their two sons, Rossmore and Eugene. In 1911, she decided to return temporarily to England with her boys, but soon planned to resettle permanently in the United States. In April 1912, the family boarded the RMS Titanic at Southampton as third-class passengers. When the ship struck an iceberg, Rhoda and her sons attempted to reach the lifeboats, but in the confusion, only she managed to survive. Both Rossmore and Eugene were lost in the disaster. Rhoda was the only woman known to be pulled from the freezing Atlantic after the ship went down, having been rescued from the water by crew in collapsible Boat A. After the tragedy, she returned to England to recover from her ordeal, before later going back to the United States. She lived a quieter life, working modest jobs and avoiding the public spotlight that surrounded many survivors. Rhoda Abbott died in London on the 18th of February, 1946, remembered as one of Titanic's most tragic yet remarkable survivors. Dorothy Winifred Gibson, 1889 to 1946. Dorothy Winifred Gibson was born on 17 May, 1889 in Hoboken, New Jersey. Gifted with charm and stage presence, she became an actress and model in the early years of the 20th century. By 1911, she was working with the Eclair Film Company, appearing in several silent films, and gaining recognition as one of the era's promising screen performers. In April 1912, Dorothy traveled to Europe with her mother and was returning to New York aboard RMS Titanic as a first-class passenger. On the night of the 14th of April, she was playing cards with friends when the ship struck an iceberg. She and her companions were directed to Lifeboat 7, the first launched from the vessel, and survived the sinking. In the days following, she was reported in newspapers as one of the more well-known passengers rescued by RMS Carpathia. Soon after her return, Dorothy starred in Saved from the Titanic, 1912, a silent film dramatizing the disaster. Remarkably, she wore the very evening gown she had on the night of the sinking, making the production both a piece of cinema history and an early cultural response to the tragedy. After leaving the film industry, Dorothy lived mainly in Europe. She died in Paris, France, on the 17th of February, 1946. Noël Leslie, Countess of Rothes, 1878 to 1956. Lucy Noël. Martha Dyer Edwards was born on the 25th of December, 1878 in Kensington, London, into a comfortable, well-connected English family. Raised between town and country houses, she moved in high social circles, and in 1900 married Norman Leslie, 19th Earl of Rothes, becoming Countess of Rothes. The couple had 2 sons. In April 1912, Noël boarded RMS Titanic at Southampton with her parents, a cousin, and her maid, bound for North America to join her husband. She traveled as a first-class passenger and was in her cabin when the liner struck the iceberg. Shortly after the collision, she went on deck and was placed into Lifeboat 8, one of the first boats lowered from the starboard side. Noël quickly became celebrated for her conduct during the evacuation. She took the tiller of Lifeboat 8 and, alongside able seaman Tom Jones, helped steer and later row the lifeboat, keeping its occupants calm and assisting in the approach to RMS Carpathia. Her composure, decisiveness, and cheerfulness under pressure were singled out by survivors and later writers, and she was widely portrayed as a heroine of the disaster. After the rescue, Noël resumed her prominent social and philanthropic life. She remained a popular figure in British society, was interviewed about her experience, and continued charitable and public activities in the decades that followed. Noël Leslie died in Hove, Sussex, on the 12th of September 1956. She was buried in the Leslie Vault in Fife. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed the video, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Your support truly motivates me to keep creating content.